charismatic leader and a passionate speaker with over 25 years of experience. Today's guest, Amir Ansari, is dedicated to designing products people love, scaling high-performing teams, and championing human-centered innovation.
So I was born in Iran, right at the peak of the Iran-Iraq War and the Islamic Revolution, not realizing that my parents are sitting in the corner, stressed that, the building can blow up. But I also like physical objects. I like to take things apart. I remember taking my Walkman apart, and I knew at a very early age, from about year 10, that I wanted to be an industrial designer. The way I've managed to affect change is escalate the purpose of design. Because when you talk design, which you and I are talking, this problem-solving, business strategy type of process, the owner of this bar or that person who's walking the street design, is it the illustration, the look and feel, the colors. So it's still misguided and misunderstood. But in terms of where AI fits in, I'm a bit bored of AI already. Then it'll settle down. People go, okay, I just expect this to do this thing. It's just another tool. It's not the tail wagging the dog anymore, right? At the moment it is. It is still a solution looking for a problem where everybody now just understands and expects it. So then we can get rid of the hype and noise and then start asking the sort of questions we should be asking now. What problem am I trying to solve? Who am I trying to solve? Human-centered design, right? Who's my customer? What are their pain and gains? Where am I playing? What market am I playing? Who's my competitors? I need to solve those problems. Okay, I'm going to use AI for that. I'm going to use software engineering for that. I'm going to use design thinking for that. I'm going to go, bricks and mortar for that and whatever. So it would just become another tool that will help us drive innovation, customer engagement, customer acquisition, and so forth.
Welcome to Season 2 of Cask Convos and our new home, the Urban Alley Brewery, right at the heart of Melbourne, District Docklands. Born from a love of great beer and a mission to bring world-class brews to Melbourne's doorstep, Urban Alley has been crafting award-winning beers that bridge the gap between mainstream and craft, blending tradition with innovation. With a state-of-the-art 25-hectoliter brew house and a 690-person brew pub, this is where bold flavors and even bolder conversations come to life. But great ideas don't just happen over a pint. They need the right space to grow. That's why we are teaming up with Natural Velocity, a co-working hub built for innovators and game changers. Because whether it's in business or at the bar, the best ideas happen when the right people come together. So pull up a chair and let's dive in. Hi Amir, welcome to the Cask Convos. Thank you for coming here. Before we start to get to know more about the journey of your career and your journey in your adulthood, we would love to know a bit more about your childhood, because I believe you've had a rather unconventional childhood. Would you like to tell us a bit about that?
Sure. Thanks for having me. I'll probably need a recliner here, so it's going to become a therapy session. So I was born in Iran. Back in the mid to late 70s, right at the peak of the Iran-Iraq War and the Islamic Revolution. So, as a young boy growing up, there were sirens, there were limited electricity, water, bunkers, and so forth. So, in hindsight, when I look back, at the time, I found it really exciting as a child, right? Sirens would go, everybody would be taught to go to bunkers at school or at home. But to a child, we were doing, cowboys and, Indians, and we're doing hide and seek with my fellow friends, not realizing that my parents are sitting in the corner, stressed that, the building can blow up, or we could be taken as children. And so, now that I reflect back, it definitely shaped who I am in terms of, I guess, the ability to have a bit of resilience, being thrown into the deep end, looking at things in a positive way, even though it might be really hard to when you're in the position. And also really appreciating what my parents went through, which I didn't do at the time. And I probably didn't do during my teenagehood when I came to Australia. I probably didn't do in my 20s. Now, as a parent with a teenage child, I worry about when they're crossing the road, I imagine what my parents would have gone through. And there's stories I shared with them, which we can get to if you like. But they went through a lot, and it just gives me a bit of been a moment to go, wow, that's not an everyday thing that every child goes through. But at the same time, I don't talk about it, I don't bring it up, but it definitely helps me to, I guess, reflect on adversity, especially when my child's in it as well, and how she can sort of go past that and continue to evolve and grow and so forth. So yeah.
Yeah, kind of reminds me of one of my what do you call it, uni friends. So she was from Afghanistan, and she was much older than us. So we were doing second year of architecture. By the way, I'm an ex-architect. So we were doing second year of architecture, and she joined us from Afghanistan, and she was at least 5 or 6 years elder to us. And she came right after the first round of Taliban regime had ended, and she said that her education had stopped because of the Taliban regime, and then she had restarted it in India. And once during Diwali, where people are bursting crackers and there's fireworks and everything, she had called home, and her parents had panicked because they could hear the fireworks going on in the background. And she told it as a funny story, but imagine the anxiety of the parent over there, where they're like, what's going on, are you safe? And then she had to reassure them, no, it's just a festival, and it's a cultural thing over here.
No, that's, well, yeah, hopefully my parents. Funny story. So between the ages of 14 and 45, men were refrained from leaving the country so they could then be conscripted and go to war. And that was one of the reasons my parents wanted to get me out, right? Because I was very close to the 14 age bracket. But when we did migrate to Australia, my dad tells a story where we're living in a suburb, and he gets a knock, opens the door, and there's people in uniform saying Salvation Army.
Yeah.
Now, my dad didn't know what Salvation Army was, and he thought to himself, holy crap, the Australian Army is now aware that I've exited I'm here, and we migrated legally. But he panicked, he shut the door, ran and told my uncle and my mum. His English wasn't brilliant. The people from Army are here, get Amir away or get him out. My uncle goes, what Army? And he opens the door, and then he has a bit of a chuckle and explains to my dad they're here for donations. But you think post-traumatic stress disorder, like PTSD, I'm sure for a good 20 years, they were worried about, someone come after me, someone come after them, what's the long-term implications? But none of that has happened, so that's good. Touch wood. Yeah.
No, definitely, that can really change a lot of people, obviously. But how did the journey to design happen then?
Yeah, so I was quite creative as a child. I remember I used to do a lot of drawing, did drawing classes, life drawing, but not with people, but just with objects. I was quite talented. It was one of the subjects that I always thrived at in primary school in Iran. Came here, obviously continued that. During high school, I really liked creating sort of art, graphics. So I always had art and graphics as a subject, but at the same time I was doing maths and physics and other things like that. And got to about year 10, and I remember clearly I designed my own logo of my anagram, my name, my initials. That gave me a bit of goosebumps. I'm going, is this a job? Can I do this for a living? Did some research and obviously learned about this notion of graphic design. And then, but I also like physical objects. I like to take things apart. I remember taking my Walkman apart just to figure out the ingenuity of people figuring out the cogs and the cables and the rubber bands and so forth. And I learned that there's a thing called industrial design. And so I researched that, and I knew at a very early age, from about year 10, that I wanted to be an industrial designer, which is quite rare, right? I talked to my wife, and she changed careers 2 or 3 times during university before she realized. Many people go and choose arts because they want to keep their options open, but they don't know. I knew year 10, I wanted to do furniture design and product design. And so I pursued that avenue, got some good guidance, had some good facilities at high school, got my portfolio sorted. And at the time, there was only a handful of universities like, RMIT Swindon, Monash. I think that was about it, that had industrial design as a course. It was very hard to get into. It was folio-based, so it wasn't about your high school diploma final score. It was all about building up a portfolio. And the thing was, those courses were open to mature age as well. So you had people who'd done architecture for 2 to 3 years, who'd gone and done a TAFE course with a much more extensive portfolio. And then here's a kid who's just straight out of high school, and he's in his one subject, a couple of days in graphics at high school, needs to build a portfolio. But I did, a physical build. What did I do? I think I built chairs and tables for a cafe. Came up with the logo Shortback Cafe. I did this whole thing. It was all mock-up, 1 to 5 scale, and I really enjoyed it. And I got into RMIT. I got into all of them, but I chose RMIT, and it was probably the 4 best years of my design life. Looking back, at the time, it was a pain in the back, the hard work, the long hours, the cost of materials, right? Shivani, you know, as an architect, right? Building scale mock-ups, and you're paying out of pocket. The subjectivity of the scoring, the need to present. It's not like you submit an exam. Every time for one of your key works, you had a panel and you had to present and pitch. So that's how I got to sort of really fine-tune my presentation and public speaking skills. And that was industrial design. But then obviously post that, going into jobs, which I can talk about now if you like. But that was, I guess, that was a penultimate time where I thought, you know what, this is a career that I want to go into, and I've never looked back. So, yeah.
It is a very fulfilling career. I can totally vouch for that, being a designer myself. I think we don't realize how fundamental design is in the entire process of creating, I would say, creating well-being for people around us. Just making them feel good about interacting with something or an object. It's a very special profession, and I'm biased, let's just say that. But I have often seen that, and obviously I'm sure you have as well, that in our professional lives, often design is mistaken to be this face paint, or as you mentioned once, lipstick on a pig. Very superficial, just creating screens or making things look beautiful. But it's a lot more than that. And as a design leader in the industry, as a very well-known design leader, you've experienced that firsthand, I'm sure of that. So would love to know
that
more.
lipstick on a pig, right? It still surfaces to this day. I'll go all the way back, So my first job was actually designing playgrounds for parks and councils and street furniture, which I loved. And talking about solving problems, like we were solving a proper need, from rubbish bins to benches to bike racks and things like that. There were problems that needed to be solved. You had to do proper research. I fell into digital really early in my career. And I remember the first job was working for a software company, which is now owned by Autodesk, designing the graphical user interface, which again, I didn't know was a job. I was designing the icons and buttons and things like that. And I go, oh, I'm getting paid to do this. Is this right? But it felt really good. But it was then that I realized, hang on a second, I'm designing this button, I'm designing this feature, but how do I know that feature is actually called the right feature? Is it accessed via the right pop-up menu or whatever? And I started to sort of ask questions. And this is before human-centered design and user experience and product design were truly, I guess, mainstream, right? There was no education, there was no teaching. So this is going back 25, 30 years. I started asking those questions about the right problem to solve. And since then, I was also pursuing that, design, like you said, can be more than just the physical aspect of the thing, but there's a need that I need to solve. And I actually, just jumping back in time a little bit, one of my final year projects at university was to design an iron, the iron that you iron your shirts. So ergonomics, texture, size, weight, and so forth. I designed it for my hand, I designed it for my taste. So it was very sort of aggressive, very sort of automotive style looking thing. And I remember testing it with my mum. Okay, Mum, what do you think of this? She goes, oh, it's a bit heavy. No, it's meant to be like that. Oh, I can't hold the handle. No, but your hand's too small. And oh, it's a bit, why is it matte and not glossy if it gets stained? Oh, because it's cool. You don't understand, Mum. And I took the iron away. And I was a little offended by the the fact that she's asking me these questions. Fast forward a few years, I go, Amir, that's the worst thing as a designer to do is to be like, we're talking about designer myopia, right? I was blinded to my own needs and wants and so forth. The designers are much more than that, right? And for, the last 20, 25 years, the way I've managed to affect change is escalate the purpose of design. Funny enough, I talk about design as the Achilles heel of design. What I mean by that is the term design is one of the worst things about the practice of design, the noun versus the verb, right? Because when you talk design, which you and I are talking, this problem-solving business strategy type of process, to the owner of this bar or that person's walking the street, design, is it the illustration, the look and feel, the colors? So it's still misguided and misunderstood. So I think that will continue to haunt us until we come up with a different term. And sure, design thinking and everything else has been thrown into the mix. Unfortunately, there's not enough good design leaders in Australia. Now, we've had chief design officers in a few banks, right? Some have been tokenistic, some potentially had the right role to play, but haven't had proper design leadership to talk at the top level about what design, the noun, truly means. And so for many startups right through to tier ones, design is seen as, UX and UI, or therefore UI, therefore the lipstick on a pig. And you look at it, the many job ads are out there, you read it. It's output, output, output. Design is still so output focused. Produce a journey map here, design a prototype over here, produce a research synthesis over here, as opposed to help solve a business problem, help the business go into a new market, help acquire new customers, help retain new customers. Those sort of things don't get mentioned in the design job. No, you're going to work in this tribe, in this squad, produce these things. And so, hence, I think the industry has become a bit despondent. The last 18 months has seen tech wreck of, decimation of design roles. We work in education at the moment. I work in AcademyXi, and we're trying to teach the future of designers, but we're starting to get students now question. 18 months ago, it was a boom. Now we go, should I follow a design career? Can someone give me some advice? Should I need to go into product, or should I go and do AI or something else? And so there's a lot of, lots of questioning happening around where to design. And so it's an interesting, inflection point.
And you've kind of taken a very interesting position within that inflection point as well, moving from graphic design to industrial design and then UX, and now evolving into AI. And you are right now leading the AI team within AcademyXi, the AI education part of it. You've raised a very important point. I feel design also needs to evolve. So what is your version of evolution? Now that AI is in the mix, where does it take us?
It's a really good question. I think you look at many roles that are well understood, career, an architect. My wife's an architect. You're an architect. If you ask someone, if they say, what do you do? I'm an architect. They're perfectly vision, and it's about 90% accurate, right? I'm an accountant. I'm a nurse. Really clear path. But if you say you're a designer, your fashion, your exhibition, what are you? No, I'm a product designer. Product? What do you mean by product? I'm working digital. Well, what does digital mean? I design your app and things. So you build apps? No, I don't build apps. So it's always been ambiguous, right? It's really struggled as a term. And again, I'll go back to the noun, the word. It definitely needs to evolve. The practice of design and the process has remained stable. Understand the need, go through an iteration process, diverge and converge, and all that sort of stuff, and many different frameworks. I think that's still fine, but I think where we take all this and go, right, this can help solve these problems, the solving of the problem bit, I think needs to change. And I guess, we talk about artificial intelligence. I'll be honest with you, it's like any other technology for me. And I'll talk about what my opinion is, where it's going, but it's going to help leapfrog. It's going to make things faster for designers, hopefully reduce costs which are often associated with design. Design, you just slow things down. You want to do so much research, you want to talk to customers, and then you want to iterate and experiment, but we don't have time for that. We already know what we need to build, all that sort of stuff that we know, right? So hopefully the glass half full attitude for me is, well, okay, now designers can go, well, there's no excuse for me being pointed, go, you slow things down or you take too long, so we can use some of these tools to fast track, be it research synthesis or be coming up with brainstorming and conceptualizing, or even producing prototypes, draft prototypes, writing content. I think they're the sort of things that will help designers be able to, remove that burden around the speed and pace, and potentially increase their quality. I always still talk about humans in the loop, and I think many people have. You can't let AI go loose. Humans are going to be evolve and drive it. I don't think we'll be fully replaced. I'm not worried about that. But in terms of how these tools is going to help shape how design works, I think in a positive way, by removing all the baggage that design had, hopefully, fingers crossed, designers and design leaders will be able to now escalate back to what I said, let's be an output driven, but outcome to go, okay, right, we can do things fast now, we can do things much at a faster pace. So, okay, so that's not an excuse. Let me help you solve this business problem. Let me help you go into a new market. Strategy, I think, you and I have talked about strategy. Design is 100% strategic skill, right? Strategy also has a big question. What does strategy mean? I'm a strategic designer. Well, it means it's solving business problems in new ways, right? Talk about innovation, and there's a lot of words get thrown out, but I think design is well placed. You look at our toolkits that we have, from journey mapping to desirability, viability, feasibility, to competitor analysis, to service design. These are strategic techniques that help a business push forward. But it's been forgotten because it's been treated as an output and or it takes too long, so therefore we're going to cut it because we don't want it. Can you just put lipstick on a pig? So I'm optimistic, but it does need a bit of a shake-up, and I think this current inflection point is a shake-up. People being let go, forcing companies in education to go, okay, what does the future of education need to look like? How do we teach the future designers? How do we prepare them for the future of work? It's not about Figmas, it's not about Miro, it's not about the tools anymore. They're amazing. But as a designer, what role are you going to play in this future business? That needs to be taught, doesn't it?
And I think that is one thing which is still not very clear for a lot of people. And you've raised a very important point around that tangibleness of strategy. A lot of people are not very clear. Strategy is something which is limited to C-suite and the leaders in the business. So how can design bridge that gap? And I think product teams also don't really get as to how design can contribute. And I don't say that that's a problem of the product teams. That's a problem of design teams, where they haven't been able to articulate as to how they can actually contribute to the strategic thinking of the evolution of the product, of the innovation of the product. And you've very rightly pointed out that if design needs to go to that next level, we really need to push our own craft to really shape what does that mean from a strategic lens. Yes, we help make things better for the customer, but then how can it benefit the business? How can we shape the thinking early on for the business so that we can inform strategy? We are not the ones who are creating the strategy. That's still left at the leadership level, but how can we really inform it better? I would love to know a bit more on the education side of things, because I feel at least this has created a massive shakeup for the education industry overall. Now everything from the means of education, the way education is imparted, to even the work that students create. There is an influence of AI, and some universities have actually endorsed it in a way. I was recently reading about the Harvard sandbox, where they've created the sandbox environment for their students to experiment with different LLMs within a safe space, where it can't, their ideas need not go out it's a safe space, but yet they can try out different LLMs to see what sort of response they get and how they can shape things. What do you feel Australia needs from an education sector perspective? How do we
Oh,
shake this up?
juicy one. Funny you mentioned that. So, as I was walking here, I read the most recent post on LinkedIn by the Tech Council, which we're a member, Australian Tech Council, and I hope I get the numbers right. In 2014, there were 800 AI jobs. In 2023, there were 33,000 AI jobs. Yet, with that growth, which I think it's huge, from 800 to 33 in 9 years, that's a lot. The Tech Council feels that rate of growth is not going to be adequate for the 500% growth in AI jobs required by 2030.
Interesting.
Scary, right? From 800 to 33,000, but in the next 6 years, which is equivalent in the same time frame, that pace isn't enough for us to satisfy the need, just the Australian market, of the number of AI jobs we need to be able to, evolve and be leaders in the world. So I want to share that. But I'll also share another anecdote that talks about education. So I used to work for a company, a technology agency that used to facilitate the random hacks of kindness, which is a global movement where you bring people together and do hackathons on the weekends. So I always remember I was facilitating, coaching, but there was a team that was solving a problem with a change maker, and they didn't have a designer. I'm going, well, I'm the designer. I can go and jump in. I can produce what they need to produce and so forth. And I remember, so I did some wireframes, we did some brainstorming, and I handed over these two devs, which they looked, the developers, they were quite young. I said, cool, you guys good? I'll just go and walk around the rest of the tables. Yep, cool. But I was overhearing them said, oh, hey, how did you go at that test? Oh, I had to wag it. I had to skip the test. Did you tell your mum? No, she doesn't know yet. I'm thinking, sounds like something like a kid conversation. So I kept listening, and then at one point I sort of approached them and go, hey guys, just curious, out of curiosity. And they were developing in a new language, like a new dev language, like a Golang or something, was very current. I said, oh, so what university course are you studying? Uni? Not in uni. What do you mean? We're year 10. You're year 10. Hey, do your parents know you're here? Yeah, she dropped us off. And they were developing as fast and as complex stuff as that person who had 10 years of development experience. They've gone, where did you learn to code in this new language? YouTube. Learn YouTube. I've gone, cool. So you're thinking of doing computer science when you get to uni? I'm not going to go to uni. Why? I already know everything they're going to teach me. And that is so true and accurate. Unfortunately, universities cannot adapt and meet the rate of change required in the technology space. And so when we talk about education, this is what AcademyXi is trying to fill, both in the enterprise and also consumer space, is the way that people need to learn now needs to evolve, needs to be done faster, needs to be done in bite-sized nanos, it needs to be done contextually, in different modes, because people learn differently. We've got now so much access to different technologies and ability to consume content, audio, video, AI, avatars, and so forth, that and people expect it in all those forms, all those modes. And so education truly needs to adapt. I question the 3 or 4 year honors degree that I did. Is that now even relevant? I'm sure people are still going to university for some traditional courses, but is that something that we want to feel? And even in the enterprise space, what does that look like? So in terms of future of education, my opinion is different forms in different modes to meet different people's needs, different languages, because we've got now globalization, and so people just need to become comfortable, be able to learn about AI or design or make it glass in a different language that suits them. Bite-sized, nano-style micro-learning. We often talk about micro-learning. And now with AI, for example, we've just released with our learning management system partner a virtual AI tutor, which means if Shabani is burning the midnight oil of the candle and wants to study at 11:30 at night for half an hour, and she needs to ask a question from someone, or the instructor or the tutor, because they only do 8 till 6, Shibani now has access to a virtual AI tutor who knows the material inside out, and Shibani can have a conversation and ask the questions, or if it's a technical course, hey, I've written this code, can you double check it for me? So that's where education needs to go to: faster, ubiquitous, different devices in different languages, powered by artificial intelligence, that you can sort of constantly brainstorm and jump back and forth. Because my opinion, that I guess the traditional long form of study for consumer space is gone. And even in the enterprise space, we run a lot of workshops. Again, I run a lot of our AI workshops, design thinking workshops. I write a lot of our courses. I work with a lot of our clients. And they want to know how to solve this. Well, they want to learn this technique or this craft, but in context of their business.
Yes.
And so every course that we do, we're bringing scenarios and use cases from the client. Or in the consumer space, we have our design or dev students work on pro bono client projects, right? Because they truly get to see what it's like solving real business problems with a client. So the client's getting amazing access to talent, but it's really hard to learn a craft in a vacuum without really understanding, well, what's the so what? How does this solve this business's problem? Or how does it solve this product problem? So that needs to happen more and more. And in terms of, I guess, where education is at the moment, I think, unfortunately, given the tech wreck or the huge amounts of jobs being lost, we are seeing a downturn. So people can't afford education because they can't afford petrol or even food. Enterprises can't because they need to really shave off the bottom line to be even profitable, even stay neutral. So those nano-style courses that are affordable, accessible, becomes even more important now than maybe 2-3 years ago, where people were throwing money at upskilling and educating.
I have a bit of a controversial thought over here. Actually, two, but I'll share the first one and would love to know what you think. I've been hearing that education so far over the years has been tailored to slowly create specialists. You keep kind of narrowing down into your field of specialization as and when as you go on studying further, all the way from your graduation, masters, doctorates, and double PhDs and everything. Whereas now there is a need for generalists. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, really good question. So probably a bit of a biased point of view, I'm a generalist. And same with you, we could be showing age 25 years ago, you couldn't specialize, right? Because the craft of what we do in the practice of product design and human-centered design was so limited that you're going right from strategy, understanding the business need, doing the research, competitor analysis, right through to producing an asset, doing the validations and so forth. I think that's what made me and you become amazing. Well, I shouldn't say I'm amazing, but you're an amazing leader.
Oh,
I'm just a guy off the street. But to experience the full breadth of what this craft is able to do. Then what happened was, yes, people started to drink the Kool-Aid. Oh, design, this is interesting. I want more of that, right? And as the education thrived, AcademyXi thrived, courses in product design thrived, more and more people were wanted. Then we go, well, we've got 200 designers. Well, we'll specialize them. You guys, you can become content people. You guys can do service design. You guys can do the UI. You guys can do research, right? So there was a need because the volume of requests for each of those crafts were required. And I talked about pace, right? But I need it tomorrow. So I need lots of you just doing that bit and nothing else. So specializations became a theme. You look at what's happening again now with the lots of redundancies. Contractors, juniors, even mid-level designers have been let go. Design leaders have been let go and above. All that's left is your mid and seniors. And those seniors are asked to do the full breadth. that content designers would ask, well, no, you also need to do research, or can you do some prototyping? You can't, but I need to let you go because I need someone to do the whole thing. Is that a good thing or bad thing? I think it's part of the timing. I think there is a room for specialization. Like if I want to get a plumber in and my problem is a roof problem, I don't want to get a general plumber in. I want someone who specializes in roofing. So I'm confident. If I want to hire an architect, I don't want to get someone who does ginormous buildings to come and do an extension for my house. My wife specializes in retail and domestic architecture. So I think there's a need for specialization. However, I think it's when those specializations just see themselves in a tunnel and they forget that, hang on, they're part of a bigger path. I go, no, I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in that. I just want to do this bit. I think that's where things fall off. That's when the wheels fall off. So I think from an education perspective and design perspective, I think designers need to see where they sit within the whole. If possible, stretch themselves. We talk about that, what is it, the T-shape, right? Well, now they talk about T-shape with two stems of the T, multiple specializations, but we have to do the breadth. I think that is required because there are times when your soft skills and your breadth of skills can fill the gaps that maybe that problem or that business doesn't have. Whereas if you're purely staying, well, I'm swimming within this swim lane only, your need, your value that you can bring, that give the organization is short-lived. So I definitely do think there's an ability that designers need the ability to be able to understand it. The challenge for education, going back to education, is, we teach, we do design and 2-day workshops for enterprises just so they can understand or taste the foundations, or we do bootcamp style courses from 6 weeks to 10 weeks. It's really hard to teach someone in 10 weeks something that's taken you and me 25 years to fine tune and craft. And that's often the question we used to get asked is, how can you call yourself a designer when you've done a 10-week AcademyXi course? And so we need to sort of really set the expectation that you've literally just skimmed the surface. You've got a taste of the full breadth. Now you need to go into the real world and pull out those tools and use them and break them and replace them and sharpen them. And so you can't replace education with real life application, be it design or AI. So we talk about applied AI as the courses that we run, is because there's one thing for me to teach you the theory of large language models and hallucinations and so forth. But in reality, you want to know, how do I use this tool to be an architect, to be a designer, to be an accountant, to be a nurse or whatever? So the application is needed. And so education needs to be able to pull that in to be able to go, right, this is how the thing that you're learning is applied, but also you are part of a bigger piece. So I don't think it's controversial what you've said. I agree. And again, as someone who was a journalist, I think it's important. But it will ebb and flow. As the market decimates designers because cost is expected, you need to do less with more, do more with less, sorry. So there'll be an expectation that some designers go, hey, listen, you have to stretch yourself a little bit. I'm pretty certain in 2, 3, 4 years' time, again, when there'll be another boom, I'm pretty confident. It's not doom and gloom for design. Again, we'll see the value of what design does. Maybe as design leaders, more will come up and go, hey, remember, design can add this value. The business will go, oh, yes, please, I'll have some more of that. We'll be able to do that. And with that, maybe it becomes more specializations. Again, emerging tech like VR, AR, AI, or the next, natural user interfaces or voice-based user interfaces, or the next, telepathic user interfaces, whatever that might be. Will become another point where maybe some specialization might be needed.
Yeah. And I think that's what we've been trying to do at Dot Infinity as well, where we are trying to, essentially we have created the design team for the future, where you are not just a designer, but we've got a mix of, people from MLOps background, behavioral science background, so different kinds of, even finance, just to create that perfect mix so that we can really go back to the business and tell them that, we are not just designing pretty screens for you or anything like that. We are actually giving you hardcore solutions to real-time problems that you have. And I think that is one thing which today's education really needs to drive home. I'm so glad that you brought that up. That especially institutions like AcademyXi often get blamed that we are. Uh, what do you call it? You guys are essentially putting designers out there with
Feeding the
limited
volume of,
experience.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's a very interesting point that you've raised, that the expectations need to be set right. That you're not really creating senior designers out of nothing or anything like that. You're actually augmenting their current skill set. If they're a nurse or an accountant, how can they make it better by using design?
Um, it is a shame where in the past you said, well, you're just producing too many designers that are not qualified. But going back to those numbers, and I use AI as the example, right? From 800 to 33,000, right? There's a need. I can tell you without a doubt, executives, governments in Australia are worried about the huge digital skills shortage that Australia is going to face in the next 5 to 10 years. How else are you going to do that? You're going to go and just bring more immigrants in? Well, you can do that, but there's only a capacity and there's complexities around that, right? We need to educate people of all shapes and sizes, from corporate to individuals, right? And so the global economy at the moment is struggling a little bit, but I can tell you there will be another boom, another bust. We've gone through it multiple times, the ebb and flows of the economy. But there's a huge digital skill shortage that we're starting to experience in the Australian economy. So we have a duty, as in all companies, all education institutions have a duty, in my opinion, to shape the future and fill that skills gap that's needed, right? Because we'll be screwed. We'll be absolutely screwed. And we shouldn't be just so short-sighted to go, well, the economy is struggling. We need to stop creating graduates in this field because there's not enough jobs out there. And students complain, well, I can't find a job. There needs to be patience, because I can tell you in a year or 2 years from that, skills that they've learned through us, or the corporates that they're teaching their staff, those skills will become so valuable. We talk about AI, right? And often there's a worry about, AI is going to take over jobs and it's going to replace jobs and going to be job losses. But again, I think there's a figure that's saying 23% of jobs because of AI will change. Yeah. What does that mean? Sure, 23% of jobs might become made redundant. Think about the agricultural revolution, technology revolution.
Exactly.
But 23% of new jobs that we can't even fathom or see right now will get created. And so by us helping to teach these people of new future emerging skills in digital will allow those people to become part of that 23% that would just be able to leapfrog and change their jobs and continue working, as opposed to have their head in the sand and realizing they've become redundant because the skills that they have are no longer required in the workforce.
Very true. So on that thought, I'm going to give you a design challenge.
Crap, I need sticky notes and pen and paper.
What does the future of design, no, not just future of design, but rather what does a design and AI-led future look like for strategy makers?
Yeah, okay. So what does the future look like in that sense?
Yeah, if you are in that sort of a leadership position, how can you use design and AI to essentially augment your strategy? What does that look like?
First thing for me is controversial. You should stop using the word design. Like I'm so sick of it. Like over the last 15 years, I've constantly been evangelizing that let's not use the word design. Let's go, hey, I can, do you want to know what your customers really need? I can help you with that. Do you want to know which market you need to get to? I can help you with that. In my back of my head, I'm using design thinking tools and techniques, but I don't talk and use the word design. So I think first thing we need to do is we need to either come up with a different label, or just call it, I work in strategy. I help businesses grow. I help acquire new customers, right? The outcome focus. How do you do that? It's okay. Well, I've got a bunch of tools in my toolkit. We'll call it design, but I'm not going to tell you that. So that's the first thing. I think I'm just tired of the word design. I studied proper product design, right? And I'm sick of that word. So I think we just need to just come up with a different word or just stop using it. That's the first thing. In terms of where the future leads, I think designers, as I said, are well placed with all the tools and frameworks that we have to do strategy. But in order to truly help businesses go, oh, I want some of that, we need good leadership. We need leaders within organizations that don't think lipstick on a pig, that don't think, to get strategy on, to get the top 4 consultants in. You go, well, what's strategy? Strategy is understanding where my business is at, where my business needs to go, which customers am I solving for? Are they the right customers? What pains and gains do I have? I need to answers to those. Who can help me with that? Amir can, Shabani can, or that designer can. So we need evangelism. We need good leaders, not just design leaders, just good leaders who understand what we do. To bring that up. Obviously, we need to continue to sell and evangelize. I think that we've done that to death. We need to continue to do that. But in terms of where AI fits in, for me, again, very controversial. I'm a bit bored of AI already. My expectations of what the future of this emerging tech has already been met. A year and a half ago, if I saw OpenAI Sora, I would go, amazing. But now when I see another LinkedIn post about a new powerful AI model that does 10 seconds, not 6 seconds, or can render that golden retriever puppy in snow or whatever, I just go, yep. So I've lost the joy because my expectations are not, I'm not surprised anymore. Yeah. So why am I saying this? The reason I'm saying this is the novelty, if it hasn't already worn off, will wear off. Same as mobile phones. Mobile phones, smartphones, I can't believe we still call them smartphones. They're just phones. Yes. Because that's what we expect of the phone now, right?
True.
Do we call the other ones dumb phones? Yeah. Or we go, can I have a burner phone? It's called the dumb phone.
I don't think the newer generation has any idea about the dumb phones at all.
Right, exactly. Yeah. What do we call them? So it's become so desensitized and normalized, I think, for me anyway, because maybe I work in the space. I'm not blown away by everything I read anymore, right? The reason I'm saying that is, once we think about customer adoption curve, call it you and I are early adopters, early innovators. Once this technology gets in the hands of the masses, to some extent it is, but it's not quite fully understood, where we got late majority and early and late majority, which is the major population using these technologies. Then it'll settle down. People go, okay, I just expect this to do this thing. It's just another tool. So the tool doesn't start, it's not the tail wagging the dog anymore, right? At the moment it is. It is still a solution looking for a problem. But we'll get to a point, maybe in 18 months or 2 years, where everybody now just understands and expects it. So then we can get rid of the hype and noise and then start asking the sort of questions we should be asking now. What problem am I trying to solve? Who am I trying to solve? Human-centered design, right? Who's my customer? What are their pain and gains? Where am I playing? What market am I playing? Who's my competitors? I need to solve those problems. Okay, I'm going to use AI for that. I'm going to use software engineering for that. I'm going to use design thinking for that. I'm going to go, I don't know, bricks and mortar for that and whatever. So it would just become another tool that will help us drive innovation, customer engagement, customer acquisition, and so forth. So a long-winded answer to your question about where is the future of AI, I think it will get to a point where it becomes a normalized thing, becomes an everyday thing. I learned recently, and maybe it was one of your other, it was one of your other recordings, majority of investment ROI on AI technology is still very poor or low. Because we're still in that experimentation hype phase. We're still throwing lots of money at it and see what sticks, right? Once we figure out what sticks and what doesn't, then we go, okay, well, I'm going to be able to use it for this, but I won't be able to use it for this. And the only reason it's such a hype now is because so many more players, so much more money than ever before, and such a faster rate of change than ever before. But we know, right? There's a Moore's law. Any new technology will just become adopted faster and become much cheaper. This is just one of those inflection points where we haven't had such a big major change since maybe, I don't know, the age of social media or maybe the smartphone. But I'm bored. I'm bored of the fact that we're putting so much time and energy into this stuff where it's just another
it's a tool.
It's just another bloody tool. And the number of parameters or the context window or how many seconds of video, I couldn't give a rat's bottom, right? I just want to go, right, when am I going to be able to use this to solve what problem? And that's the exciting stuff.
On that note, what excites you about the future and what scares you?
I'll start with a scare because I don't want to finish on a downer.
Okay.
I Okay, so what scares me is, I use the word deep fake, but it's probably a bit more complex than that. The amount of crap that will continue to be produced, not by humans, but by this such technology, will result in, I guess, bad actors trying to misinform, trying to do evil things, trying to, from cybersecurity threats and so forth. That's the one thing. The other thing that sort of scares me is that maybe the future generation will become even more pessimistic about what they read and what they consume. Like, I remember my daughter's 15 years old. When first she read it, like she would read an article, see an image, go, "Oh, Dad, look at this." And I knew that was done by Gen AI because you could just tell it. And I questioned, goes, no, it's real. I saw it on this website. I go and find some other sources. But now she'll show me, goes, "Hey, this is funny." I've gone, "Yeah," she goes, "I know it's Gen AI, but like enthusiasm, skepticism has increased. It's a bit sad, right? Because now you just don't trust anything you see or read, and you just assume by default everything's just either synthetic or just been produced by a machine. So that scares me. Or it sort of disappoints me. I'm a bit sort of, oh, that's a bit sad. What excites me though is, and I'll put a blank here, future emerging tech, not just AI, because in 2-3 years' time we'll probably stop talking about AI because it will be another thing. Proper impact on humanity. And I'll use a couple of examples. Like, not many people might know, I've got a NFC chip in my hand.
Okay.
Yeah. I've had it for pre-COVID, 6-7 years.
That's interesting. What is that for?
So my goal was, and I've had a couple of friends who have it, the ability to make payments with my hand, to be able to do, touch off and touch ons on the public transport. To this day, I can't. A friend of mine went to Sweden many, many years ago. She rocked up to equivalent of public transport Victoria because she wanted to buy a ticket for the train. She goes, the person behind the counter says, do you have, your card to top up? No, but I've got a chip. And the lady just said, yep, sure, just tap it here. She tapped it. Great, I've just uploaded with 20 kronas or whatever the Swedish currency is. Thank you. It was norm then, right? We're still not there in Australia. But what excites me is once these technologies will become fully integrated. I've got smart homes, I've got smart lights, I've got smart locks in my house, but yet they don't necessarily talk well together. I talk to the Hey Google speaker and it often gets me wrong, or the speaker picks it up whenever I want to speak to that speaker, and then if I want to lock my door, I have to pull up another app. It's still very cumbersome. What excites me, I'm going to get to a point where, like Minority Report, have, I don't know, what do you call it, contact lenses and sensors that I can just go, flick that, do a bit of this, gestures, voice, tap my head, and things can just happen seamlessly, all integrated. That excites me. That's very futuristic. But also what excites me, what these technologies can do for humankind, especially with people in need. I've got a good friend of mine, she's legally blind. She has a guide dog. And I remember I was in a workshop, she texted me, she goes, "Amir, I can see." And it was something of that nature. And I thought, well, hang on. She was born with an eye condition, eye disease. Did she miraculously just wake up and she just got her sight back? Did she do a surgery? She didn't tell me. And then when I talked to her, she goes, "No, I got myself," and this is not a plug for the product, "I got myself a set of the Meta Ray-Ban glasses." So tell me about it. So prior to that, she used to use a Be My Eye service. What that was, and I was part of that service, was she would, she's blind, so she would take a photo of the back of a can of baked beans, send it off to this platform. Someone on the other side of the world, could be me or whatever, would see the image and go, "What's the request? Can you tell me the number of calories or the ingredients, or does it have nuts in it?" Someone would physically look at it and then respond, "It has 3 grams of this, 5 grams of this, and it's baked beans, not tomato sauce," and so forth. So imagine someone like that. She's trying to cook or she's trying to get about her business. Every time she'd have to take a photo, send it off, wait. Now she just walks around the house, okay? And she's listening, baked beans, slap shot beer, Okay, no, that's not the Apple sauce. That's something else sauce. Oh, Amir's walking towards you right now. Watch out, the lights are getting red. She's now able to live. I was reading other case studies where, because of AI, people, stroke victims, who, because of the brain injury and lost the ability to speak, could now speak because the synapses and the brain waves were being collected by a device, a machine, and through artificial intelligence, they could recognize what Shabani or Amir are trying to say, and actually then speak those words with 80 to 90% accuracy. Or cancer detection, AI is solving or helping to fast track solving of cancer. Or detecting sepsis in hospitals, which is one of the biggest major killers of patients in hospitals, or detecting unexploded landmines in war-torn countries. These technologies are helping solve those problems. I'd like to get to a point where we're solving global warming with these sort of things, which is happening. That really excites me. Am I going to be able to see Minority Report and pay with this in my generation?
You never know.
I'm not sure,
You
but I'm
never
excited for my daughter. I'm excited for my 15-year-old who, by the time she's grown up, she's going to be able to use this technology for good, solve world problems, wave her hand to have things happen. Almost like we've been really creative with movies, right? And I think the movies do a really great job because they, in an artificial way, showcase what we really want, what we really need for the future. But except it's in movies because we can't do it. Technology keeps pace and it, in effect, mimics movies that were trying to predict something 5 years ago, but that's becoming less and less. So I'm hoping stuff we see in movies will become a reality.
Totally. I feel movies definitely set some benchmarks for the
They
future.
do, don't they? Set the tone of what you want to expect.
Absolutely. On that note, I think it's been amazing chatting with you.
You're welcome.
And I hope one thing that you mentioned in terms of what you're scared of is, people losing that sense of wonder.
Yeah.
I really hope that does not happen. And we continue, even with the most amazing technology in the world, we still continue to keep that sense of wonder, be surprised, be amazed, and then aspire to also keep creating wonderful things with design, with technology, with overall, well-rounded thinking. I think that's still needed and that will always be needed in this world. And whatever you've talked about today has kind of just made that feeling stronger, and I feel
That's good.
definitely I can definitely hope for a very bright future for our next generation.
No, look, I'm cautiously optimistic. I tell my wife I'm a realist or cautiously optimist. I feel too. I think as humankind, we'll always persevere over the negative and create a more positive future for ourselves.
Absolutely. I think we are just, sorry, go ahead. No, I was just saying that we are just, at this moment, at this stage, because everything is so new, we are a bit dazed, but we'll come out of it and then we'll start creating.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It was great fun.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
From data management and product innovation to regulatory compliance, whether it's optimizing costs or enhancing efficiencies, Infinity is your partner for solving tricky problems with a human-centric and tech-powered approach. Connect with us at contact@infinity.co.